Dear respected teacher, dear noble community, this morning we have a session, question and answer, with some our senior brothers and sisters who will share their experience. So we have a chance to ask a question of our heart, something that is kind of floating there in us, whether in the last couple of days or for our whole life. It's that important question. Not that there will be an answer, but it's nice to know what your question is, your ultimate question. So it's already a joy just to be here. So we don't have to solve anything. We don't have to find the bottom line of any issue. Just the fact that we're here already, you can feel the answer is in the community, in togetherness, and you can get nourished by that. So question and answer is just another kind of format. Don't think that you're gonna get the answer to the universe from today. You might, actually, sorry, you might. Sorry, John. But we just hope to just expand more and more of our awareness with a session like this, as Sister Huong Nghiem shared. We hope each day, each moment, our awareness becomes more and more inclusive of other things that we weren't aware of before. So please ask a question concerning your practice, concerning your life, at home, at work, in the world. Those are questions that can help people. So aware that you're asking, and you're asking a good question can be a great benefit. And a good question does not have to be long. Thai reminds us very compassionately. Thai is so gentle how he reminds us. Loving speech, but you know what he means. So please be aware of that. And for those who maybe feel more at ease to write the question down, please write down. I think we might have some questions in the bell. I don't know if that one. But for those who would like to ask questions, you can mindfully walk up here gently, come up, and each one will sit at the seat, the platform of the lion's den. The Thai sometimes calls it. Is when you come up and ask Thai the question is like, oh gosh. But Thai is very gentle. But I remember Thai sharing that one time in the lineage retreat. Yeah. And none of the monks and nuns came up. You know, come on, this is your chance to enter the lion's den. No monks moved, you know, and we asked from in the audience. So that's a sweet memory I have of this space in here. So for those of us who would like to ask questions, you sit and you will listen to one sound of the bell. So when you hear that sound of the bell, before you ask the question, find some ease, some peace in you, and check your intention. So this is very important as a practitioner to be aware of when you open your mouth, where is that coming from? So use that moment just to relax, and you don't have to try so hard. And that way the question will be closer to your heart. So this is a practice of asking question. Other than that, I think introduction is. I think our brothers and sisters. They've been quite. Sister Lyn next to me, and Brother John and Sister Huong Nghiem. To me, they're like the big oaks hanging around the valley here. Every retreat we've seen them. Right? They're not only practicing in their area, but they do make time to be with the Mahasangha and with Thai and monastic. So this is something we cherish very much, to have people who stick around. So we're very fortunate to be hearing from them, their practice and their experience. I think that's, I don't know if I forgot anything, it's been a while, but it's okay, CJ, huh? So maybe we can invite the first sister to come up and sit on the chair. Maybe you can angle the chair a little bit so the audience can see a little bit of you. Yeah, thank you. So we'll listen to one sound of the bell.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, dear beloved community, my question comes from the Beginning Anew presentation last night, yesterday, whenever, and includes reflections from many other people in the Sangha. What happens, what do we do when, as Sangha members or family, we witness a beginning anew, and it brings up pain in us? What we have witnessed brings up pain in us. What are the forms and practices that we have as a community for bringing in the rest of us? So for example, some of us practice something called restorative circles, restorative justice models, where anyone impacted by something that happened can come and sit in circle and be heard. And that really came up for me and many people watching the beginning anew. Numbers of women I spoke to felt uncomfortable that the sister wasn't fully, our perception was that the sister wasn't given full voice or didn't take it or whatever, and who knows if that's true or not, but it triggered a pain in us as women. It may have triggered something for Chinese, Vietnamese, because that was this incredible issue. And I don't know, I know at least two of you weren't here for this, so I hope you, were you here, Brother? Okay. So my question really, since you all weren't there, it's, I don't know how to deal with it. So we'll just make it more general. What are the forms in our practice, in our communities, for really shining, I guess, the Sangha eyes on the beginning anew? And it's very relevant for me in my work and life. Thank you.
as you could see, we were discussing who might be addressing this inquiry. And I would like to accept that I wasn't there, and I was suggesting that John might, because I think he has also some experience in schools and possibly with restorative circles of some sort. So I'm I'm tossing the ball for the moment, the microphone.
My own personal experience with beginning anew that I needed to do and let 1,400 people know was at the Toronto Educators Retreat. I'm a little microphone challenged, and I just happened to be sitting in an acoustic dead spot as a part of the panel for the 5 mindfulness trainings. I could hear the person to the left of me and the person to the right of me. I couldn't hear any of the other presentations. Well, that's kind of strange. So I start talking when it's my turn, of course, and things are rolling along, and I realize, of course, I have about, as a Dharma teacher, as we do, I have about 20 minutes worth of material for a 5-minute time. So I'm going on, and I'm having fun, and all of a sudden I see this little bit of laughter in the audience. And, you know, that's interesting. The song is laughing at something I said. I didn't think that was funny. Something must have happened, and maybe I'm more humorous than I think. And I continue on because they stopped, and a little bit later they start laughing again. Well, that wasn't the punchline, but okay. And I'm going on, and all of a sudden I feel the tug on the cord of the microphone. And I'm like, what's this? Why am I having the microphone? I look over like this. Phap Ho is sitting over here, tugging on the cord, trying to let me know. He has a big smile on his face, like, your time's up. The bellkeeper had been inviting the bell. The bellkeeper had been inviting the bell several times. I was just aware that maybe later on that had happened at least twice, and the bellkeeper was over on the side, so I had no visual cue. And I heard absolutely nothing. And of course I have this pride, a little bit, always a little bit of pride running around, that I always stop for bells. I just do. Even if nobody else is stopping, I'll stop for bells. And it's not like I'm trying to show off anything, it's my practice. And here in front of 1,400 people, it had made it seem as though my talk was more important than stopping for the bell. No time for embarrassment, so I apologized right then and there. And to me, that's it. When something happens and you're present with the person and you realize that there is a problem and a misperception, and I knew the bellkeeper had been doing the best that the bellkeeper could do. But it wasn't time. I didn't have a chance to go talk to the bellkeeper about this. So immediately after we were done, I went over to the bellkeeper and explained that I just flat out couldn't hear and sorry. So one of the ways that I find beginning anew is most helpful is like right in the moment, because when things sit for a long time, it becomes rather difficult. I don't know what perception the audience had. I wish that I could have gotten them all together and had more words with them than, sorry, I didn't hear the bell. There's a gossip about putting on the brown jacket about sort of dissolving when one puts on the brown jacket, or maybe disappearing into the role of an OI core member, or perhaps a monastic, or a Dharma teacher in this case, and we forget how we might be perceived. I was just having a conversation before I came down here with someone who was speaking about brown jackets and wearing, not wearing, and that as a large person perceived to be male, I walk a really fine line, especially when, as it is in most situations, I'm in groups that are predominantly women. I think all men and all humans need to be quite aware of what goes on in those situations, that there are perceptions and histories that exist that need to be held in awareness for the entire time as things go on. And I did prison work as well. For 9.5 years, I did prison Dharma. And beginning anew is what these people were doing for years. And they found their own way to do that. And they have to get back out in society, and hopefully society will be able to practice beginning anew with them as well. And I'm going to see if someone else wants to continue on. Thank you.
Yeah. So go ahead for the minute. Okay. Hello, again. So I understood the question, and usually I like to have a dialogue with someone who asks a question, as you say, that there's not answers so much as responding and deep looking together. So the only thing that I would say is we have the form of listening circles in our practice together, basically Dharma sharing. So if there's arising among 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people, a perception from having been witness to something in our community or anywhere else, the possibility of convening an ad hoc listening circle. So we breathe together, and from my experience, it also takes shape from the women's consciousness movement. But we just go around and allow each person space, and maybe a second and third time. And from that arises the deep looking of what is from the immediate moment, our perception, but also the historical sensitivities that we're bringing to the moment. And then with that mindfulness, collective mindfulness, perhaps there's a discernment of what to do and what not to do to be of benefit. So the listening circle practice, which can happen at any time, any place, for bystanders, so that bystanders can become upstanders in a gentle way, would be the short answer.
Thank you. Before I ask my question, I have a small story to tell you. I am always negative and angry. And I'm driving my friends and my family crazy, and even driving myself crazy. And I have a friend, she told me, you have a beautiful wife, beautiful children, successful. Why are you always angry and negative? And she brought me to this place. And I came in, I met wonderful people, everybody smiled, good energy. And 3 days ago, I get angry again, negative. I was complaining. And the next morning, I start to complain and be negative to my friend, one of the group we share, family group. And he tried to calm me down and explain we shouldn't be angry. And the friend she brought me here, she looked at me like, what's wrong with you? Why are you being negative? And she didn't say that. I could read it in her face. So I turned around, asked myself, why am I angry? Being negative. And I tell you why I was angry, being negative. I left the meeting here earlier, 2 nights ago. I went to the coffee place, and I saw people asking for honey. There was no honey for their tea. And I looked around, I saw coffee, instant coffee, and the powder for the coffee made from Nestle. And the monastery asked us for our health not to eat meat and fish because it's bad for us, and here they offer us this Nestle product, pure poison for us. And bad for the environment, they destroy the environment, what we try here to protect. And it should be both ways. Even it's a monastery, you expect us to respect you, and we should be respected too. And they should not offer this product for us, which is poison for our family, for our friends, for the environment, destroying the environment. And I said, the only thing, not being angry and negative, you have to say something about it to the right people. You cannot complain to your friends, they are hopeless just like you. So, thank you.
Dear Sangha, the Sangha is made of non-Sangha elements. So for us to have the product there, I'm personally not aware of Nestle having all that impact. So we'll relearn as we go. Our shoppers will learn to find out the impact and reduce the products that are not healthy for our community.
Dear friends, I carry something on my wallet that is helpful in a number of different situations, and I forget that it's there sometimes, and a cashier asked me at one point in time, "Are you sure?" And I think that was rather random, and it was because they saw my wallet where I've written, like, "Are you sure?" on there. And so that's one thing. I'm never quite sure and quite certain. I have great faith in the community that they listen. There are many things along the way. I've not been involved in the community as long as some of you present have been, but this is not the same physical arrangement. This is not the same way that things are managed during the day when we're on retreat that it was the first time I showed up. And why does that happen? That happens because people speak about it. So my personal feeling is I'm really happy that you're speaking about this to someone, and whether it's to an individual or it's in front of a group such as this, that these are the way that changes occur. This is a part of the evolutionary process of the Sangha, and you are one of the catalysts. So thank you.
dear Thai, dear teachers, dear community. Several members of our sangha have expressed strong, heartfelt feelings about how it is hurtful for them to be asked to separate between male and female. They don't feel that they are truly part of either group. And many of our ceremonies, we traditionally, as I understand it, separate with men on one side, women on the other. My question is, how can we honor the traditions of our lineage and at the same time reach out to these sangha members who are so deeply uncomfortable with sexual assignment?
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, thank you for your question, and I think we were all expecting that. Coming from France to this country, and Brother Phap Dung and I we had a lot of Dharma sharing before coming back to Turtle Island. In Europe, most of the concern mostly for immigrants and the poverty and the no jobs and climate change mostly. Recently from the Wake Up Earth retreat, but we knew we were coming back to a country that's quite stimulated in the last couple of months, rightly so. And I think this is wonderful. To this morning, I saw the way the cushions are arranged, and it kind of merges together. And I had breakfast with my brothers, and I said, "Wow, I'm going to bring this back to France. It's so beautiful." Kind of like, the monks are here and the nuns are here, and it kind of does this wrap around. And I joked with him. It's like, wow, the nuns resident, the monks, we can kind of have a resident in between, and it just, in between it could be half monk, half nun, And it's, I mean, we joke, but it is our community trying to adapt. This is our generation. I guess it's, the task of our generation. Thai came from a tradition from Vietnam, an Asian country, and he tried his best, and we see that he has inspired a lot of people in those realms. And so we know this is nothing new. It's in the Buddhist tradition in Thai's time. He brought the nuns into a certain level of equal standing in the community. Not equal, but not made unequal. It's hard to, I hesitate to say equal because it's quite a dangerous thing to say. Not dangerous. Because America, everything is about equality, and it's tough to practice with that because it's one of the complex. And when we read, the superior complex, the inferior complex, and the equality complex, we always get questions like, what do you mean, equality? That's a complex? Or like, what's wrong with equality? And so on. We get that. It's like a classic. And so we have to look a little deeper into that, what we're asking for. We're in a spiritual tradition, and it's more based on virtue, on compassion, about, and I think this is something that is informing me, reflecting on, peace, happiness. That has no gender, has no class, it has no, more solidity, more freedom. These things it's not about, it's not even about humans, it's about freedom for the plants as well as the minerals. And so these different qualities, these different virtues don't have a sign. We don't call it a one or the other. So these qualities, I look more, look at the person like that, like a tree or a flower. So for me, I try to be careful about looking at that person as being male or female, but actually what is the quality that they're emitting as a human being. So that's kind of helped me in my practice. In our community, it's the tradition, monks, nuns. In the Buddhist time, he brought in the different caste system. He's tried to deal with the class issue and the social issue. But that has been the format. I'm sure there were issues during the time of the Buddha, but it was never addressed, directly. And I think it's the modern Buddhism that we are evolving. And so we need to stay open and not to jump too quickly to the cultural, tension, because it destabilizes us as an individual, as a practitioner, as a community. And what rides it through the times to 2,600 years is not about going up and down with culture, but finding a kind of that underneath the big current wave, that it's a deeper transformation of the suffering. And this is something we are looking at as monks and nuns, as lay women, lay men, and we're learning to learning to adapt it, but not to be careful, not to be trapped by the signs. There is a suffering in there, and you might be a male or a female, but you're making that the issue, but underneath there's a deeper suffering. And that's what we gotta get to. And I remember after the first POC retreat, or the second one maybe, and I remember I was in the room and Thai asked Larry Ward, it's like, is it helping? Are people becoming freer? It's like POC retreat, and I was asking, are we helping having these retreats? Are people becoming freer? I mean, he didn't, I finished the phrasing, but in my mind, or are we just dwelling in that cycle of something? So this is something for me. I remember very much being in that room. What's concern for Thai is the ultimate concern. Are you freeing yourself? Whatever form human being you're at, like a tree, Thai would ask, is the oak tree an oak tree? So are we so uncomfortable with something that we have to do something else? So for me, that's the kind of freedom that I'm looking for as a practitioner, not a male or a monk, or as a person who wants to live this life free from the conventions the society assigned to us. So you have to be careful what that means, because it could be that there's a new assignment, we're not aware of it. And you think that's where your freedom is, but you get there and you realize, well, actually, so for me, I was in a system like that, male, successful, got a girlfriend, so on. And I saw, get a good job, a house. That was one convention of living. And when we become monks and nuns, we try our best to not to create new conventions, although there is a tradition, and that is where we're being tested in terms of monks and nuns. I can't imagine living with the nuns, and I can't imagine the nuns living with us, because it's, if you live in a community of 450 so monks and nuns, and you'll see, it's just, there's certain different approaches, and it's not because they were monks and nuns, but it's just different approach as a body, you know. And so something, that's kind of like where my reality is, living in this community. In terms of you as a practitioner and seeing us as monks and nuns, please, we're a new friend to you, and you don't know us so well. So stick around for 10, 20 years. You know, like any relationship, any marriage you come into, you have an idea. After 3 years, it's different. After 5 years, it's different. After 10 years, 20 years. But are you around to grow together? You see? Or are you 3 years, okay, I don't like it anymore, divorce, new partner. This is the culture we're living in. So we're like a community, we're like a partner to you. So stick around and help us. You know, go in organic, go in sustainable living, go in whatever you want. But are you committed to staying around to know that there's something uncomfortable in this relationship? And you breathe with it. And this is what I've done as a practitioner living in this community. There's a lot of things that I don't agree with, a lot of things I find uncomfortable with, but I breathe and I know underneath each one of my brother and sister is committed to stay and stick with it and grow with it. So for me, this is more important because this community needs to be alive and be there most as harmonious as possible. It can't be complete perfection, but enough of us have shared commitment that we stay, so it becomes a refuge for others. And I see that as my ultimate concern. These social stuff, I love it because it's like, it makes you kind of like edgy, you know. It makes people really edgy. Everybody's ready to share about it, and I'm watching that. I'm watching to see, you know, where people, the base in which they share it. Is there freedom? Is there solidity? Is there, you know, compassion? Is there brotherhood and sisterhood? Or do you like to just look around and find what's wrong and get it? That is also a habit. You see? So this is, for me, I see this as a great potential for growth. But I am also, I have one foot planted like in Aikido, so I don't, you know, fall. Many of us overreach ourselves with a social issue, and it could be challenging. Anyways, that's just where I'm at, and thank you for raising awareness, and we hope that you continue to help us grow and be more inclusive, more compassionate, and more free. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if any of my brother and sister would like to add.
Dear brother, thank you for raising the question in the way that you did. It was general as well as specific. How can new forms arise in the traditions that we've inherited, which I think could be any of our traditions. And thank you, dear brother, for our 25 years or so of friendship and commitment. We are in total agreement, and there are some areas in which I see things a little differently. So I will not go on and on about it, or even on about it. But simply to say that for me, to ground in our practice and our aspiration for deep liberation, over these years, our community has included in a way that was not included in the Buddhist understandings as I know them, taking a deep look at the inner child. And so we have learned from some of the Western psychological forms, and we have learned from our deep looking, that the little one within us needs attention. So for me, when we say social issues or cultural issues, it's not exactly an issue. It's the little one in me and the ancestral messages that came, which are stories at this point, and yet they are also arising in our current everyday lives. So the newer forms of Buddhist practice can include looking at these structures of our societies and cultures in a way that, although the Buddha invited various people into his community, he may not have looked as structurally. I'm not saying it exactly the way I want to, but so I would encourage us to not get caught in the stories. Thai asked the same of the veterans' work when we were practicing with veterans. Is it moving the healing and transformation? Or is it going around in a circle in our minds? So we have this beneficial and non-beneficial. So if our deep looking into our cultural inheritances and heritages is allowing us to see more clearly and more deeply, then it frees us, and to see how our societies can be freed as well. If we're going around in the circles, we need to find our sangha mates who can help us step outside of the circle and ground in our practice. So there's a lot to be said, so I'll stop there. And it may not be as clear as I would like it to be. One more thing. The horseshoe. The horseshoe. I don't know if you were here this morning and you saw that. So that for me, I've been in the community some years, and that for me is the fruit of deep looking by many people and by many inquiries to find a creative way to hold the energy. And that's what you're bringing to us as well, to this community. So thank you.
Dear panel, thank you for being here and sharing with us. I have a question about determination in practice. So for me, and probably for many people, it can be hard to practice when in a period of a lot of struggle or really difficult things are coming up, and I have a tendency to want to maybe lose myself in consumption. And so I've been thinking a lot about the ways to develop strong determination, or to develop a stronger practice. So I think we can change our environment or try to put ourselves in situations that are conducive to practice. But then I've also talked to people about maybe just a strength from inside, like almost like Nike style, just do it energy that needs to come. And so my question is, how do I recognize that energy inside of myself, the seeds of that strong determination? And when I do, how do I water those seeds? And maybe in particular, how do I distinguish that from, let's say, you know, an energy of fantasizing about like the growth that might happen in the future, which I think can sometimes look a little bit like being determined. I'll leave it there. You want me to?
I understood parts.
Sure. Yeah, if I can summarize. How do I recognize the seeds of strong determination for practice inside of myself, and water those seeds?
Thank you for your question. I think that's very helpful for all of us. The determination aspect of continuing on, and the encouragement that we get from a gathering such as this is a luxury that doesn't happen very often, and we're usually on our own, or maybe with just one or two other people. And how do we keep this going? If we were to look at the determination or the aspirations or perhaps volition, and so I was thinking about the talk about nutriments, that might be a part of that process. If it's not working really well in our practice life, to make contact with that, we might consider how it's working in things that we might in some way call our non-practice life. And I think at this point in time, I'm not sure there's any distinction, but and I know for a number of you out here, this is the way it is. There's no separation. It all goes together. But at some point in time, we encounter something that we're doing that doesn't look like practice. And it's like, what's encouraging us to do this? So I would think if we're not seeing how the practice connection is happening for determination, aspirations, and such, how does it work outside of that? That's one. So when we recognize that happening for something that we want to do that doesn't seem like it's a mindfulness practice, to pay attention to that. And not just to pay attention to that in and of itself, but what does it feel like?
That's sort of my question.
Mm-hmm. So what does it feel like when you have determination to do something that doesn't seem that it's a part of the practice life? That's a rhetorical question or an actual question, depending upon which way you'd like to take that. Rhetorical, okay, that's fine. Dedication is dedication. Aspiration is aspiration. There are many things to which we aspire, and I've encountered people who get concerned that they're not practicing as much as they would like, and think, well, let's take a look at that and see how these things that you consider to be non-practice time are actually practice time. And if you're not getting that there is a connection between that, how can we make them practice time? How can we involve the practice? How can we involve the teachings and incorporate that together so there's not any separation between our activities?
I'd like to maybe add a little bit. Somehow I'm feeling there's a caution that I'd like to add to this. Is not to make ourselves into a battlefield. I think I heard somewhere just recently that when we want something too much, we force ourselves. The practice becomes laborious. And in that case, we're still striving, we're still grasping for something. And that in itself negates the practice. That's one caution I'd like to add. The second one is, again, the practice is moment to moment. If anything we're doing, we can always bring it into the practice with our steps and our awareness, even if it's only that one breath, or that one instant that we pick up the coffee cup, or that we're throwing away in the garbage and thinking, oh, it needs to be recycled. Just that one instant that we're aware that we're recycling something that could be recycled instead of going into the landfill. It's just that moment we can make it into a practice already. And we're not dividing ourselves, this is practice time and this is not practice time. And somehow that's coming up for me in hearing your questions and your sharing about your questions. Just to be able to know that whatever we do, it needs to be light, and we're actually better after doing it instead of more heavy or more tense. It needs to bring more joy and more peace somehow. And if we're not doing it and not getting that, then somehow the how we're doing it is not all there yet, and we need to learn and find out. It might not, what we're learning here might not exactly fit for us, so we need to modify it so that it would fit for us. We need to understand the essence of the practice, be able to make it work for us. And whatever we read, whatever we hear, is still someone else's practice. We need to somehow translate that so that it fits our situation, our thinking, our perception, so that the practice becomes ours. And until you can taste that practice and have that experience of your own, then it will continue to be, how to feed that. You know how much temperature, how long it needs to be cooked, all that. It needs to be your dish and not someone else's dish. I hope that makes sense.
This may well be the naive question that you always get asked, but aside from being very poetic, what is the equality complex?
What is the equality complex?
That was my question. so I'm really glad that you asked this. And when I say that was my question, the first time I heard that talk, I didn't know whether I'd heard it before or not. And so I heard that, I was like, what was that? That was really fascinating. And so I found the sister who had spoken the words and said, help me out with this. I haven't seen this written anyplace. And at that point in time, I don't believe it was published. It is now. It's in the chanting book. And you can find it. These wonderful words. I think it's wonderful that here in this sangha, in this community, in this space, we get to hear these words spoken on a regular basis. And it's another one of those, you can call it a mantra or gata, however you'd like, that we just really need to go to on a regular basis. So I then said, okay, I have the words, and I looked at that and said thank you and thought that I was done. And I took some time to read it, and I like, okay, inferiority complex. Like, I'm not as good as this person. There's a little bit more to it than that. And therefore, and this is when we start thinking about all the things that should happen or will happen because I'm not as good as this person. And to me, that gets to where the complex is. I had some help figuring this out. I did not do this on my own. And so I would say, oh, superiority complex, you know, what's that? It's like, oh, I'm better than they are. And therefore, and this is my personal take on it, there's some entitlement there. And therefore, I should have this, I should have that. People should listen to every word that I say because I'm a Dharma teacher. And on it goes. And so I thought that I had a good handle on these, especially with discussions, but the equality complex, going like, isn't equality one of those things we're looking for? And or, you know, equity or equanimity or some of those equa words, probably not equestrian, but we're going on with this and think that, you know, there has to be something there. And I think I went to Lyn. I'm not sure to whom I went. I have so many resources. It's really fascinating, and that's the wonderful thing. So here you are. Here's the resource. And the equality complex I found to be the most intriguing, and maybe it was because I hadn't really considered it before. I'm just as good as this person, and therefore. And so I was like, oh, you know, somebody got an award. Oh, I'm just as good as that person. I should have had an award too. One of our good friends received a brown jacket. I'm just as good a practitioner as them. Why have I not been ordained? This person received a lamp of transmission. I think I've been involved in the community and offering my services and teaching without being recognized as a teacher for years. Why didn't I get one? And so it's a matter of, in my estimation, taking what seems to be some sort of a difference or an equalness, and then thinking way too much about it, and then. Yeah, stop thinking, like not only stop and sit, but stop thinking might be a good idea. But these are challenges. I look at these as challenges all the time. Sangha facilitators, this is a deep study. Dharma teachers, this is a deep study. If I'm asked to lead a retreat, I talk to the organizers and say, we need to change the word. I feel we need to change that word lead, and that's the reason I love this facilitate, because I can't drag the Sangha along. I can't drag people through the retreat, and it's not like I'm doing the retreat anyway. As a Dharma teacher, if there are 40 people there, you know, everybody's involved. The entire Sangha gets the work done. So I'm glad that you brought this up. I'm glad I had the opportunity to say something about it, and I know I'll be doing much more contemplation on this. Thank you, brother.
I have something to say. That's a surprise. So the encouragement that John just gave to look deeply and invite yourself to ask the question, for any of the questions any of us ask, it's really fruitful. When I first heard this in one of the sutras, I also thought, oh wow, it was an oh wow moment. How I understand it from my inquiring has to do with a phenomenon of the mind that is the comparing mind. And somewhere I heard that somebody said that the Buddha said that the comparing mind is the last kind of mind that catches us, that's the last one to go, that we get caught in comparing mind. So as I reflected, okay, inferiority, it's pretty clear. I see it in me. Superiority, it's pretty clear. I see it in me. Also, since we're talking in this vein, I, as a person of Jewish roots, where there's some words, chosen people, I've been having to look into what does it mean to be the so-called chosen people, and other people thinking that Jews have a superiority complex. So how do I deeply look at that? Just to bring that thread in. But the comparing mind also says, am I equal to or not equal to someone else? Or even to myself, as I was if I'm a jogger, which I'm not, but am I equal to yesterday's jogging today, as I age? So is there a way, yes, on the historical dimension we look at comparisons, but is there a way of going deeper and saying, let go of that category of comparison?
So it's insecurity.
So the question was, so it is an insecurity. On the historical level, in the level of our human-to-human interaction, we can see it as insecurity or security. We need a longer time to unpack that one. But what I was referring to was, if we can go deeply and simply say, this is what it is in this present moment. We breathe. And we connect with each other beyond male-female, beyond white-white, beyond tall-short, beyond, I'm 72, I don't know how old you are. But as with the tree or the flower, we're just present. And I'm not thinking, am I inferior or superior or equal to this present moment experience. Now to go fully, completely there, I think we need to go through all those other investigations and inquiries so that we also understand what we're bringing from our collective consciousness of equality or non-equality, of power. Thank you for the question.
Just add on for practice. This is a challenge for a lot of us. For me, especially growing up I've been educated in the West, and of all of Thay's teaching, you need to make a practice out of it. And so it's not just a concept about equality, superiority. I live in a community with many monks and nuns from all different culture. We all have different capacity. Some are cooking right now, some are giving Dharma talks, some are just doing nothing. Community is like that, family is like that, society is like that. The visual that has helped me is like the hand, the fingers, it's Vietnamese culture. All the fingers work together. Thay recently reflected on the body. It's not just you, it is a community of organs and bacteria, viruses, and all working together, the heart, the lungs. So these things we can bring into our life to practice, to see everyone. And another visual that has helped me a lot is to see everyone as waves in the ocean. And we're all emitting certain vibrations, certain waves, and you see that, you see beyond them. You see their ancestor that's brought them there as a wave, you see? And where the wave is short, it's small they are. Some waves are taller and some waves are shorter. Some are more a little bit, edgy. Some are more calm. Some are not visible. Some are visible. And that has helped me a lot in, calming that complex of looking for, because once, I remember thinking like that, once you start on the realm of making things equal, it doesn't end. I don't know if you notice. You know, it's like, how come, oh, and it goes, because it's based on separation. So the wave doesn't. We're all water. So anytime there's a difficult situation that triggers that comparing mind, I return to this practice of water. Yes, there is disagreement, there's, differences, but we can all feel that same water. And this is a practice. You got to train it. You got to make it, every time you touch it, and it becomes I guess, a good habit. Yeah, or it causes less suffering for myself and for others. So please, if anything you hear from here, try to make it into a practice. And this is very important. So it's not something you're carrying around now. Well, actually, this is what Plum Village thinks about this. Very dangerous, because we don't have a policy, we just have practices that help you. So I just want to add that in terms of turning that into a practice.
I'd like to add, like John was saying, the example he was saying, I'm a practitioner a long time, and why the other person's getting the brown jacket and I'm not. So the practice there is to have joy that your sangha member is progressing in his or her practice, and seeing that, and not seeing the distinction. You're separate, you're different, but someone else's progress is also your own. That's where we can see as a practice very concretely. We actually were listening to a few question and answers by Tay. I think the last June retreat before the whole group came here, and that was one of the questions. Like John was saying, in the community of monastics, we hear about the equality complex a lot. So for me, to understanding it, it's easy to understand, and I'm practicing with it, but to be able to explain and share to someone else so that they can practice it, I was saying, how do we do this? And then that was the question that was put up. And one of the things that helped me to remember, that cleared it for me, was the word equanimity, and it's actually defined to be non-discriminative. It's not being equal. It's not being discriminating, non-comparing. So when we keep with that kind of definition, it frees us. Again, it's not trying to compare, again, us against them, you and I, but together. So hope that helps.
Beloved Master Thai, beloved family, I come to expose the fraud that I am and the ego that lives within. My concern is regarding the Noble Eightfold Path. My intention as to why I'm here, and the livelihood that I wish to live after departing. I want to burn what's left of this ego. I want it to go away. I see it in the field of my perception, and I know that it is not what I am. I may not get it right, but in the teachings of the Buddha and the Dhammapada, there's a statement to let the foolish be among the foolish if that's what he or she desires, but to spend at least one day with the wise. And I'm tired of playing the role of the jester. And I ask for wisdom. One bee by itself cannot do very much to pollinate. But a colony, as we have gathered here, can do so much. My statement is an affirmation, more or less. For 17 years, I was married. My beloved wife at that time, which I'm no longer married to, is a schizophrenic. And it's just something that she was born with. And she's the reason for why I'm here. In 2009, she attempted suicide. But I intervened. And then last year, she attempted again. And I also intervened. I'm here before you to commit suicide of my ego. And I ask for a swift euthanasia. I clearly see the ego, how fearful it is right now, of rejection, of its desires, of its wants. I have set the house on fire. I clearly see, as the Master Siddhartha said, "O architect, I see you." And as the house is burning, like a thief in the night, he has gone up to the very top and is at the roof. And I ask for your support. Your light as a family is shining bright in the night like a spotlight, and he can't go anywhere. He's caught. I let go of my biggest attachment, which was my wife, when I realized that it was just a game. She didn't love herself. How could she possibly love me? And at that time, I saw the veil of the illusion just wipe away. We both went our separate ways. I left all of my possessions. And I took refuge with my mother and father. I literally sleep at the foot of their bed after almost 25 years of being an independent adult, having my own place. And I want to explain why I'm here and why I sleep at the foot of the bed of my mother and father. I got rid of my possessions. I got rid of my biggest attachment. I don't want to be homeless. And I even consider that path. I want to be part of a loving family. One that is on the same path. One that understands. Siddhartha, the great master Buddha, was fortunate enough to have his family join him after they realized and saw the truth. I am alone, and I'm grateful for it because it is the will of the universe. To expose the fraud that I became for so many years is like when a vampire gets hit with light and he doesn't like it and he's kind of shying away from it, and you see the steam coming out of his face. That's how I feel right now. And I just want to burn, and I just want ashes to remain, and not even that. I wish to take refuge in the Triple Jewel. And I ask the Sangha's help. For too many years, I have played the role of the fool. That is my desire. That is what's left of my volition. Thank you. The ego is the gesture. I am the perceiver of that ego. And I clearly see it. The gesture is simply the title that I give to the ego.
Thank you, dear brother, for giving a glimpse of your suffering. And there's much more I would like to learn more about you, and how you love your wife, how you are humble enough to return back to your mother and father. It's very beautiful. There's no ego there at all. I think you coming up here and taking refuge is quite beautiful. You have a faith in yourself. You have to recognize that as well. So you can see that you're very humble. It's just an unfortunate condition that has come about and has turned up in your life, and you tried your best. I can see you love your wife very much. And that is never lost. Your wife is also in many places. There are many more things to love in this world as well. And the world needs more of that love, more of that humbleness, more of that courage that you have, I feel, coming up here. So your heart is very pure. You're just caught a little bit with the notion of ego. I just redirect it more towards the quality in your heart. You're very loving. I can sense from how much you've done for your wife. You tried your best. And sometimes the conditions are not appropriate, or are not there for us to do everything we want, or get what we want. And if you learn anything from the Dhammapada, it is sometimes suffering is there, and you have to be aware of it. But don't just focus on that. Know that you are also very loving, very humble to sleep at the foot of your mother and father, considering how old you are. That's very beautiful as a human being, to know when to come back and take care of yourself, to take refuge and heal. I think the way forward you is find healing, find nourishment, find joy. And the world needs more people like you. Sensitive and deep and loving. And please see that. That is in your whole body, your ancestor. So allow yourself, put your hand on your lap and open it to the sky. Breathe in. I am loving. My heart pure, with no other intention but to be a benefit to not just myself, but to all living beings, to the planet Earth. Breathing out, I see myself as a flower in the garden of humanity, doing its best. Some of my leaves are wilted, but I am still a flower. I smile every morning when the dew comes. Sometimes it feels like tears floating down my eyes, but they're the morning dew, caressing my cheeks, the petals of my flower. I feel relieved and fresh as a flower. Breathing in, I am also a mountain, immovable to my emotions and my thoughts and my self-judgment. I sit as a mountain, no longer pushed and pulled by my emotions. Breathing out, I smile to the gentle mountain. No need to try to be a mountain. The mountain is already in me. There are soft clouds floating in my head, light and free. I don't need to try and strive to change anything. Just stay still. The mountain is me. The flower is me. I'm not just human being. I am also the elements of this planet. So I encourage you to make it a regular practice to nourish the flower element in you, the mountain element, the space element for yourself. So the palm open. There's one way to practice. You use mudra to hold, right? When you need, that you already have enough. You strive too hard. Now practice to hold your palm like that and relax it. Curve it a little bit. There you go. Practice to be gentle more. Don't use your muscle, because that will only water your mind. There's too much striving. So you learn the Dhammapada, less striving. Let the conditions, the wind, inform you. So relax, come back to the basic practice, and remember, flower, mountain, lake, and space. Those 4 elements is your homework. And please, we need more people like you to be healthy, to be compassionate, not just for your wife, for your father and mother and your ancestor, but for this planet. Thank you, brother, for practicing and for being wholehearted.
Beloved Thai, brothers and sisters, spiritual community. The answer just given, the ones before, have spoken deeply to my heart, and I will sit with them. Being given this opportunity to ask in front of the whole community is, I just can't pass it up. Thank you. I shared with my family yesterday that I have a deep felt sense of not belonging and an aching desire to find my herd, so to speak. I came to this retreat for one reason, and that is to find my sangha. I have tried to start a sangha in my community. I live locally in East County, and I tried to start a sangha. I've attended sat with a number of groups and have not felt at home. So I guess I have a twofold question, which I do plan to address to one of the brothers, and I have been invited to attend a sangha in San Diego. So I feel already that things are moving forward. But my two-part question is, how do I heal this deep felt sense of not belonging? And how do I find or start a sangha?
I'll try on the part of the belonging. In Clarity, we recently started to receive young women into our one-year intern. And we also have an aspirant who's for an aspirant nun. So I've been thinking of how, as an older sister in the community, to help them with their practices. And culturally in Vietnam, when you come to a temple, you would address yourself as Con or child. And I know I've been hearing various things with people discussing it with the Western mind, like, talking and someone who's older and talking to a younger nun, maybe in her 20s, and addressing a child to her doesn't feel right or doesn't feel comfortable. And I know that such a practice is a deep practice, but if it's not presented in a way that could be received well, then both the community and the person loses a chance to practice. So for me, when we say Con or child, you're not the child directly to the person you're addressing right there in front of you. For me, the practice, you're a child of the sangha. The sangha could be, it's a broad, it could be many different ways. The sangha could be the sangha that you're living with right there. The sangha could also be your own blood family sangha. And for me, it just goes wider is the sangha of all practitioners. And not just Buddhist practitioners, everyone who's on the spiritual path. And on, and you can see even, and not just historically now in this moment, but all the spiritual and even wise people who lived before me. So for me, there's no way that I can be alone. It's our perception of not seeing all these umbilical cords that we're tied to. And we need to be able to somehow shift our vision and not be caught with, like right now, with my eyes and my very high index eyesight. I don't see physically very well, but we need to be able to train the inner eye to be able to see things that are not actually physically there, but actually is there and supporting us. So with that shift of perception and of opening our vision of our understanding, not the knowledge, the understanding, it also helps us to deal with that being disconnected, being alone, being lonely. Being alone is not bad. Being lonely is the problem. It's because you see you're not, someone else is, somehow you're not connected with other people. You can be alone, but you're not lonely. That's where the practice is. So I hope that helps.
Now I have to figure out what the other part is. My own personal story in this about belonging. There was if you will, a subset of the Sangha, if that makes sense, that I had great aspiration to join, but I felt that I wouldn't belong. What helped? I went anyway because that's just my nature. Sometimes I just don't know any better and I just walk in. But what helped was deep conversation. And when I say deep conversation, I mean really deep conversation. Going, not deep voice, but going way down. I realized I lowered my voice when I said that. It was kind of silly. But you go way, way, way under the surface and back 2, 3, 4 generations, 5 generations, 6 generations, and all this stuff that is a part of them that they share, and like, oh, I do belong. And that's one of the great gifts of the time and the stopping and learning how to speak from one's heart and learning how to listen well without, as Lyn was speaking about, the comparing mind, which is just amazingly wonderful. And if one can diminish that even a bit. So you notice when it comes up and you say, oh, okay, I see you. I see you coming up here. And you take care of that. About starting the Sangha, I wanted to start a Sangha when I first heard Thai talk about Sangha. It was just, the bell was ringing. And I said, I just need to take care of this. I had no idea how to do that. So I spoke with those others who had started Sanghas. And somewhere along the line, I think that Ty may have said, he said a number of things, so we probably said this, that, you know, it's not as though you're going to put an ad in the newspaper and do it that way. There are other ways of doing it. And so the way things ended up is I had an article in the newspaper, and that was the way that people were attracted to my song at first. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have an interview by a reporter, have myself photographed while meditating, which is just strange. And beautiful photo, by the way, best photo that was ever taken of me. It's like, man, lights coming down diagonally across my face and look really peaceful, and it was wonderful, but that was not my intention. So asking around, and here again we are in the conversation. The resources are immense, and this is another part of that, oh, we're not alone. And we can talk about ancestors and such, but these people here, I'm sure that there are a number of people who have stories of starting sanghas, and some who helped to get sanghas going, and it didn't work out quite so well. But they'll still probably say, it was still worth it. So good fortune for you.
So, dear sister, thank you for the question. Just a few notions arose as other people were talking. Have you been to the deep relaxations here? So that might be one practice, to record yourself if you don't have other people to record it. It's also online with Sister Chung Kung and other people. At the end of the deep relaxations, there's often lullabies. And I would encourage you to lullaby yourself. There's new words to the Brahms lullaby. So, for example, lullaby and hello, you are well worth our waiting. So this is birth without violence. So Sister spoke about umbilical cords. So again, and I mentioned inner child. You are beloved and you are wanted. And whatever gets in your way, any messages of really knowing that, you can touch that place by breathing in, I'm aware of you, my little newborn. Breathing out, I smile to you. And then with each breath, 2-month-old, 3-month-old, and on up through being 100. It's actually a very powerful, I invented it, a powerful practice for myself. Based on Thich Nhat Hanh's practice number 18 in Blooming of a Lotus, seeing ourselves as a 5-year-old child. But we don't have to get stuck on 5. So once we've belonged to ourselves, then we see what happens with the trees and the universe. And the birds and the flowers and the sun are our sangha, so we can say thank you each time we meet any one of them. Thank you for the question.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, I think we can wrap it up here. Thank you, sisters and brothers, for everyone for contributing to wonderful energy of more awareness of what is going on in each other and in ourselves. So we'll end here with 3 sounds of the bell. And please use these 3 sounds as a way of letting go. Whatever you heard, whatever you've seen, just let it go. Things touch you, things were deep, things were irritating, things were you agree with, just let it go. 3 bells help us come back to our breath, back to our steps, and to the present moment.